The purpose of this video is to discuss how to frame over doors and window. So if you look at our floor plan, there's certainly a door towards our building, and there's certainly this wide span of windows on this side too. So for these windows and doors, they have to be engineered, and we are going to use headers whenever we encounter an opening, such as a door or a window. So um, I prepared first here parts of a stud wall. A stud wall is basically a wood framed wall, and they are pieces of wood that's standing up, which are designed to carry the vertical load. There are also the space loads, and the size of the studs are important piece of engineered structure. So if we have a stud wall, they are typically spaced at a distance of 16 inches, which is one third of plywood. It is composed of a top plate, and typically they are double plates, and then they have a bottom plate, and then the studs are the vertical pieces. So the spacing of these studs are typically 16 inches on center because it's convenient uh, to space them one third width of a plywood. At the same time, not only are they convenient, they're also structurally sound. So you would typically find these stud walls spaced uh, 16 inches, or the studs spaced 16 inches on center. If you are building a, let's say, a shed, which is not really going, is designed to carry much load on the second floor, right, like that, you would typically find them spaced at 24 inches. So for livable buildings where people are um, found to use them on the second floor, the stud walls are going to be spaced, or the studs are going to be spaced 16 inches from center to center, or we refer to them as on center. If you will create a opening for a door or a window, the stud wall or the studs on a wall will be interrupted, and therefore we have to transfer the load from the top plate to the bottom plate by putting in a header. So a header is a stronger piece of wood that is found at the very top of an opening, and it is supported on each side by these green pieces, which we call king studs. Okay, uh, uh, jack studs or trimmer studs. The king studs are the pieces of studs where the header is attached to by nails. So they're going to nail that on this side, and then vertically they will support the header from underneath using jack studs, or we call trimmer studs. Um, because the opening of the door might be lower than the wall, they will have to cut smaller studs and put them in between the space from the top of the header to the bottom of the plate, and these are called your cripples. Okay, so on a window, you also have a header, you also have a jack stud or a trimmer stud, and then you have the bottom of the window sitting on a sill plate, and underneath the sill plate you will have your cripple studs. Okay, so you have cripple studs on top of the header below your um, top plate, and then you will also have cripple studs below your window sill plate above your bottom plate. So this bottom plate will eventually be cut flush with the floor. Okay, so this is how your headers um, transfer the load by continuing to act as a beam. Okay, so the headers are typically made out of built up by the two bys, which you typically find them in houses. And to reach the width of the wall stud, they would sandwich the two by. Okay, two by meaning the size or the width of the um, of the wood, and then put in some spacer in between them to reach the stud width. Okay, they can also be made out of wooden I beams, or typically laminated lumber, or just a big piece of lumber. So headers are typically beams, and you can make them out of sandwiching, solid lumber, um, pieces of glue, laminated lumber, or even wood chips. Okay, so if you have a wider span of opening, like garage doors, for example, you will see that they will use an engineered wood. Okay, so engineered wood is basically small pieces of wood that are glued together, and it's actually stronger than a regular wood. Okay, so here are examples of engineered wood. We have LVLs. Okay, LVLs are um, laminated pieces of thin strips of wood chips, basically. Okay, then you have parallel strand lumber. Okay, parallel strand lumber, long pieces of wood that are again glue laminated. Okay, and then you have laminated strands of lumber, pieces of LVLs like this, and they're glued together and created to form chunkier pieces of wood. And then you have your oriented strand lumber. These are again wood strands, and they're pressured and glued together to create a stronger piece of lumber or wood or that's used for I-beams. Popular brand for a um, engineered wood is a Trust Choice. It's really owned by this Weyerhaeuser, and let's try to use their Paralam brand of engineered wood, which is called a PSL. Okay, PSL. If you forgot, this is called a parallel strand lumber. Very popular for beams and header application. Okay, so it is. I mean, you can, or an engineer could order a custom size parallam, but that means that it will be more expensive because it's customized. So there are already pieces of parallam or PSLs that are readily available, but these comes in these sizes. And if the header is or found to need more depth or need to be wider, then that will certainly probably switch to a different kind of engineered wood. Okay, maybe switch to an oriented strand or a laminated strand. But typically, these are engineered lumber that would fit header requirements unless it's a really, really long span. Okay, so let's go back to AutoCAD and see how an engineer would typically call out these headers. Each engineering firm has a different way of specifying or calling out their headers. So let's do them by putting in a dimension like that. And then we are going to double click the dimension and override it with a call out. Let's press delete first. HD1. Okay. So HD1 would stand for header one. And you can see that this is a long span. And what you would do is on your um, structural notes, you would uh, double click that and add HD1 and call it out as a header. Okay. And then you would say header number one, zoom in closer. Header number one, and you would say that this would be a parallam. And you would say that it's a 5 and a quarter, okay, by let's say 11 and a quarter. And then you might even say that this is a PSL. Paralam is a brand model from Trust Choice. So if you want to be generic, you would say this is a PSL or a parallel strand lumber, and then you would not say Paralam anymore. You would just say the size. Okay. So finish and done, and then we can simply just move the rest of it down and do some other stuff here. Okay. Um, so that's one way of doing it. Okay. Let's do another one here. You would say that from here to there. Okay. Let's line them up and double click and delete and then put in HD2 close and then go back here on your structural notes, double click and add again, and you would say that it's HD2 and it's going to be another header, and you'd say number 2, which is a PSL, and you would say that it's also a parallel, 5 1/4 by 11 1/4. Now, header number 1 is a really long header, so this might be a 5 1/4 by 18 inches by 18. There you go. Oop, let's just delete this, and uh, that was supposed to be here. So let me undo and move this as part of this one here. Okay, so that's header number 2, and then you have another one here. Um, and you would again put in something like this, double click and delete, and then put in HD3. Oh, check. Um, Certainly, this is not your ideal situation, so you will have to like move that or even move that just a little bit further down. There you go, HD3. Okay, and then you're going to add again your HD3 here. H Caroline HD3 header number 3, which is a PSL Caroline, and that would be also a long one, so we're going to change it to 5 1/4 by 18. There you go, outside. Okay, so that's basically it. So I'm gonna leave that there. If you have a window here, you could use the same header here and there. You have a door here again, which is only about 36 inches, so you may use the same header as HD2. Okay, so you would call it out as HD2. That means that you're using the same header. Okay, double click in and delete, and then type in HD2. If it doesn't automatically go back, then you um, have it go back and move the label like that. Okay, so you got to do that for all your door openings for interior doors as well. So you've got door here and door here. If it's not load bearing, typically they would have to assign it a non-load bearing header, which could be a built up and it's not parallel anymore. Uh, but it's just a label, okay? And then the actual details can follow. So make sure that you do that on your floor plan, but that is your next step in your structural. So this is certainly more than foundation plan, and we're going to modify that later. But for now, do and label all your headers. Okay.